Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a royal episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Encyclopedia. I am your host, the Encyclopedia, doing a very bad royal imitation. It's bloody terrible. Joining me tonight, we have from the royal heaven, the Reverend Jason Todd, who's laughing too
Greetings and
hard.
to all of the. So we're at the Royal Library. I think that's okay. That's fine.
And we also have with us another royal member. This time, the prince from hell, the devil's advocate, Robert Faint.
I thought you were going to call me a royal pain in the ass.
That's what I was
Golden
thinking.
opportunity there.
I'm sorry, sir, your wife is not on this podcast, so we will never say that about you. We love you, sir. No flaws. I'm also kissing your ass so you could be nice to me when I do get to hell one day. And why am I talking like this? Because this weekend we will crown a
Is it too late
new
to put on a
king
mask?
and queen of the ring, because the tournament finals are this Saturday at the King and Queen of the Ring event from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
I
How
don't
much will
want
it
to
cost
tell
to get you
you.
to stop talking like that?
I aim to do this the whole show.
I kind of want to point it out as being racist, but I can't tell against who. Like
All of
I
I
do
humanity.
can't
that
make a
very
case
well.
All
I
of
insult
humanity.
everybody at
against the
once.
human race.
Okay, enough of that.
Again, speakers, non-speakers, deaf people,
all,
blind people, French
all
Canadians, all of
bipedal
them.
organisms.
Yeah.
I will now say the devil's advocate off with his head.
That sounded kind of regal.
Oh, although he is in hell, so he already probably lost his head at some point.
Speaking of regal, we are going to talk about the King of the Ring tonight.
We
Yes.
are.
Okay, but before we get into that, we also have another event this weekend from the competition, AEW. It's the Double or Nothing event. 5 years, AEW. Wow.
Wow.
It's been 5 years. You believe that? Time flies.
Still around. Not bad. Not easy.
Well, if you got enough money to just keep throwing at it, it's your decision.
And they said they wouldn't last.
Who said that?
I don't know. It's an expression.
No, I've
A
heard
lot
that
of people.
before. But some people are probably curious how long they're going to last because the attendance is still going down. The pay-per-views are still selling pretty well, but the TV shows, we're getting some shows less than 3,000 people. It's got to be real weird if you're Okada and Osprey came over from New Japan, big stars. And I don't know, New Japan, I don't think films everything in like the Egg Dome, but they usually have full crowds wherever they are. And now you're performing where half the arena is empty. So I find it interesting that they've gone back to their original Double or Nothing location, the MGM Grand, when they've been at T-Mobile the last 2 years. Does anyone else think that's weird? Do you think they could have filled the T-Mobile arena? I mean, I think we're talking 4,000, 5,000 people seating difference between the two.
I mean, if it's fewer people, it makes sense. If there are fewer seats, and maybe it's. We talked about this for weeks. We've talked about this for months. They got to embrace that they have a smaller niche audience, and not expect to fill massive arenas and stadiums, everywhere they go, because it's so glaring when there aren't people there, because they don't have that production level of, say, a WWE or even like a TNA, because they were used to working with smaller crowds. So yeah, I think this is a good option for them. I'm surprised that they're actually doing that.
Rob?
Well, I don't know. We've often called them an indie promotion, so maybe they're finally embracing the fact that they're not going to draw big numbers. So they're going to go, scale it back. I mean, maybe somebody's got Tony Khan's ear and is trying to straighten them out a little bit. Like, you need to stop going to these huge arenas and it looks bad on TV. Or maybe they're just starting to figure it out. I don't know. But either way, I think it's a good move. I think you should always go smaller when it comes to venues, right? Because then if you're turning people away, now that's a story. But if you've got a 10,000 seat arena and you're only selling 5,000 seats, that's not a good story. So go the opposite direction, right? Go to a smaller place and turn people away. Say, hey, we sold out.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think maybe they're finally starting to figure some things out, and that might be one of them.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And honestly, the camera angles have been done in a way that you can't really tell how empty it is, but you could hear it. When the crowd starts chanting, you could definitely hear it. And semi-tied into that, we know they're going back to Wembley. I don't know how many tickets are being sold at this point. I think last time I heard a number, it was like half of what they had gotten last year. But they also announced a residency for Collision. They're going to be at the same arena. I forget where. I'd have to look it up, to be honest with you. But they're going to be running Collision at the same show or arena for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. Did you hear about that one? And what do you think?
I haven't, but I was thinking to myself that, they might be better served with that model where they're just taping multiple episodes in a shorter amount of time at one location. And it might be smart, you could get a like 3 days out of the week and just get people in for those shows at one place, and that might work out for them. I mean, not quite as small as, say, Performance Center for NXT or wherever they are now. Where are they back at the Performance Center or Full Sail or whatever? I can't remember.
It's the Performance Center.
Yeah, something like that I think would benefit them, because again, you just want to create that. Of course, whenever I talk, that's when the cops come by. You want to create that kind of relationship.
You're welcome, Jason.
Thanks. Yeah, I knew it was you. You want to at least put forth the narrative of a relationship with your fans and people who are constantly coming to check out the product. And if you're in one location for a little while, I think that'll help. But it's also smart that it's a short amount of time, because you don't want to be in any place too long. Not in their case. So yeah, I think it'll work for them. They should probably do it with Dynamite too.
So it's in Arlington, Texas. I have it now. It's Saturday, July 20th is Collision. Friday the 26th is Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. Saturday, July 27th, Collision. Thursday, August 1st, Collision. Saturday, August 10th, Collision. Saturday, August 17th, Collision. So they're not taping multiple shows in one sitting. It's actually 5 Collision shows and the Ring of Honor show.
That's
I'm
interesting.
gonna differ, and
Yeah,
and here's why. And it actually ties into NXT. I don't think you could really get an understanding of what your audience wants across the board if you're in the same location every week. It's a problem I've had with NXT for a while. It's basically a bunch of groupies that are there every week. So how are the NXT superstars really learning if they're getting over if it's just the same crowd every week and they're just going to pick their favorites and have their fun and what have you? After a while you get that unison with the rest of the crowd. You guys know what you want to chant for and what you don't, where if at least you're moving around locations, hey, this might be great in the Performance Center. I've now gone up to the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie. They're not buying it the same way. You know what I mean? And for Collision specifically, especially the fact that this is all leading into All In. I don't know. I get what they're trying to do, but if you're also then going to a stadium show from there, I'm like, I don't know, having the same crowd reacting the same way every week, I just don't see how that necessarily attracts interest or maintains it. I don't know. It's like when Monday Night Raw debuted. They were at the the Manhattan Center every week. It was the same crowd. But they go somewhere else after they've been at the same location every week. They might not be getting the same reaction. Now there's confusion. All right, now what do I do?
do you think it's more so a confusing thing because they're going back and doing it this way, say, as opposed to if they just started out like that? And I mean, they kind of did this back in, when we were in lockdown era for all of our wrestling, and they just had one location, and they were doing this out of Florida. But I don't know. Is there a danger of losing the fans that they do have who want to go see these shows, and now they're far less frequent?
No, because they're not getting a lot of fans going to the shows to begin with. In fact, I really hate to say this, but I think it was Meltzer who said he thought this might backfire on them because you're expecting the same market to support the same show 5 weeks in a row. You're going to places for first time you've never been to, or places you've been to before where you drew crowds before and you're not. Now, it's not like it's almost like going back to the territory days is I think the comparison he made, like if you were at the Mid-South Coliseum every week, those fans came out. There was no nationally televised touring show back then. So you wanted wrestling, you went every week. Those days are gone. And I don't know if that would be sustainable now. So it's an interesting experiment. At least they're trying to do something different than what they had done in the past. There could be several reasons for it. It could be financially motivated. It could be, let's take shop. We'll get fans in a certain area, and at least the shows will look full every week. I don't know. I think it's a cost-cutting move. We don't want the competition necessarily to go away. I mean, while you're talking about Triple H booking versus Vince booking for the WWE, that competition did at least, drive some new ideas to WWE, even under Vince, based on what was successful in AEW in some respects. I mean, let's not say that didn't happen. I don't know how I feel about this residency thing. I don't think it's a great idea. There was a time that they were, and really they still do it now. They don't go to necessarily the biggest arena in each town. Like, for example, All Out in Chicago, I believe, is at the Sears Center. It's never at the Allstate Arena. It's not. I think they did United Center for the initial Rampage when Punk came back. I feel like their best bet would be find these local colleges, which they do in some respects, but go for the ones with the smaller arena. Like, prime example, if you go back to In Your House Final Four, I think it was in the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, I believe. And that was a small stadium. But it didn't necessarily feel that way because of the way it was built. So and it ties into what we were saying earlier, that if you can't fill the bigger arenas, go with the smaller ones. And I think they should stick with that. I don't think staying at the same location for several weeks in a row is going to work. And I know you brought up the pandemic. I think that was more out of necessity.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was definitely out of necessity.
Yeah, I don't know that they would have done it back then had it not been out of necessity. Let's put it this way. Where in this case,
okay.
I think maybe
they would have gone big arenas from the get, like that whole time, if they had their way.
Yeah, and when they first started, it wasn't like they weren't selling out back then. And even when lockdowns started, becoming more lax, then they started touring a little bit. Those shows were selling out. I mean, just last August, Wembley got 80,000 plus tickets sold. You notice how I said tickets sold, not people in there, because that's what he wanted to emphasize. I'll go with that. But it seemed like, and I'm wondering, and I don't think this is the sole reason, but the attendance, had been suffering for a while. But I noticed it really seemed to taper off when MJF went out with injury and Samoa Joe became champion. I don't think it's a knock on Samoa Joe necessarily. I just think maybe MJF was a bigger draw than we realized.
Well,
I know, Rob, I've been going for 5 minutes, Rob. Go for it.
I said I read that MJF is coming back probably by Forbidden Door. So, that could be the jolt they need. I don't know how to feel about this residency thing, because I don't know what the motivation is. And unless they're doing discounted tickets or some kind of promotion that goes with it, I don't really see what the point is. I understand. I don't think the NXT AEW comparison is fair, because NXT is supposed to be a bunch of rookies, where AEW is established talent. So I wouldn't expect NXT to draw more, because I wouldn't go see NXT every week to see a bunch of people I don't know. Like I wouldn't go see an indie show around here with no wrestlers that I'm familiar with. But I would go see AEW to see Adam Copeland and Danielson and all those types of guys. But on the other hand, how much wrestling can you take? Like $1 a pop to go to 5 Collision shows. So I don't know what the motivation is. I don't know what the thought process is. So I'm having a hard time figuring out how I feel, because are they just trying something different? Is it financially motivated? I don't know. Are they going to do that like in every area? Are they going to let's go to Texas for 5 weeks and then they're going to move on to, I don't know, Missouri and stay there for 5 weeks? I don't know. I don't really understand it. So it's hard for me to wrap my brain around what they're trying to do. But then again, AEW's, infamous for that. There's a lot of things that go on there like that. I just shake my head. I don't really know. It doesn't seem like there's a wrestling guy running the show. So, sometimes I get it, and I enjoy the wrestling, but then there's other parts of it I'm like, I don't really understand. And I think they had their window when Vince was running the show and people were really looking for that alternative. They were there. The problem is when WWE turned it around, they couldn't keep the people that they got. Everybody went back to WWE as soon as things started to turn around. So I don't know if they're ever going to recover to those type of numbers. They may always be that 700,000 viewers, 4,000, 3,000, 4,000 draw. And then the pay-per-views. I mean, their pay-per-views always deliver. So I don't understand what the problem is with AEW. Like, why are the TV shows not bringing in the numbers? Why are the non-pay-per-view shows not bringing in the people? Because I used to love going to Raw and SmackDown. I didn't want to go to a house show. I wanted to go to a Raw or SmackDown, or I wanted to be on TV. And they can't even really get people through the door to Dynamite. And it's the same people who are on the pay-per-views. I mean, I don't know where the disconnect is.
By the way, I went and looked up the venue because I've been reading while you were talking, and it sounded like the city of Arlington gave them a good deal. It's called the Esports Stadium. It's actually a theater, and the rumored capacity is 2,500. This is really small, and it's not even a true arena.
Collision.
Yeah, and the photos I'm seeing is literally like a theater with a stage.
So maybe they're testing out that type of size, like the stage, and they're going to run a couple of shows and see how that works out. And maybe that's what they're going to do going forward.
You could argue, though, that Daly's Place is the same setup, and they couldn't sell that out last time, so maybe that's why they're trying a different location. I don't know. Just the photos I'm seeing, this looks more like a concert hall or a place you'd go to see a play than a wrestling show. So this is interesting.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I do want to see how it ends up looking. I'm curious as to how it'll come across on TV, and also if they're going to be able to consistently get people in. I mean, that's really it. I think Robbie said it. It's not like these people can't wrestle, so you're going to get at least decent matches, and they deliver at their pay-per-views. But yeah, there's definitely a disconnect with their TV shows. I don't know.
I mean, I honestly think they made a mistake by having Collision. I think they should cut back. I don't think Rampage is necessary. I don't really think Collision is necessary.
Rampage, I forgot.
And I certainly
Rampage
don't think Ring of
exists.
Honor is either. So, I think maybe one show a week is enough, or maybe one show that's maybe have Dynamite and just Rampage and call that done.
I don't think Rampage. I think Rampage and Collision's numbers are similar. I think Rampage is in a death spot because it's at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday.
Right,
I mean,
nobody's watching that.
Right. I mean, we've been saying none of us are thrilled that SmackDown necessarily is on a Friday, but it still draws about 2 million viewers a week on Fox. Collision just being on Saturday night, that's really tough. And we've been saying that from the first week that was going to be a tough sell, because as much as Friday is a night in the United States that people tend to go out, get dinner, whatever, Saturday even more so. You know, I almost wonder if they would have been better off doing Collision on a Sunday, especially with
And
WWE not necessarily running pay-per-views on Sunday. Although there's rumor that with UFC and the TKO group that might change on some soon. But be that as it
all the
may,
preemptives with the basketball and all that kind of stuff,
in
and you never know
hockey,
when
yeah.
Rampage and Collision is on. They'd be better off on a channel that doesn't broadcast any other sports.
Yeah, I mean, I also read somewhere like Danhausen, I believe, is out of contract now, and that they're trying to get away from the comedic elements. We've been saying one of the biggest problems for a long time. Yes, the pay-per-views. Well, at least you feel like you might be getting your money's worth. You might be exhausted and felt like you went 12 rounds by the end of it because of how damn long it is. But we've never said, "Oh, this is a terrible show. I feel sorry for anyone that's paid for it." You know what I mean? But this, you get the hardcores that are watching, and you're talking about the really indie New Japan hardcore fans that are really into AEW. But the storylines, even now, they bragged about that writer they hired from WWE, and it's gotten better, but not by much. And I thought was really telling. Did you guys watch Dynamite this week? Did you see what happened with Jay White? Jay White's coming to promo, and clear as day, somebody screamed out, "Who booked this shit?" And I burst out laughing because I was like, I was falling asleep listening to him. But wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's been some hits and some misses. And the other thing is, I mean, when they start previewing like the Rampage card, I'm like, I'm not watching that.
Yeah, no.
Like,
yeah,
there's no star power on that show. Why would I watch this? Like, I'm certainly not going to stay home and watch it. My DVR will DVR it for me, but then most of the time, I would say I don't think I've watched Rampage in months. It tapes it, and I end up deleting it. Collision, if I have time, I'll watch it, but it's not must see. I always watch Raw and Dynamite are the two shows I never miss. The other ones are all I'll read about them, find out what the results are and see if I want to watch parts of it, but I can't say I can. I watch, just don't have the time. And if I'm gonna watch something or go to bed or I'm tired, like last time I put Collision, I fell asleep, and I wanted to watch it. I was just too tired. So it's hard to work in all that wrestling and all the A&E stuff and all the dark side of the rings. You guys know I'm not saying anything that we haven't said before. There's a lot to watch, so it's hard to do it. And then I look at it, I'm like, why would I want to watch? I'm trying to think of like Matt Seidel. He might be a nice. Could give a shit about him. So why do I want to watch him on Rampage? Wrestle somebody another guy I don't care about. And then I read the Ring of Honor results, and I'm like, wow, okay. There's like one match I might want to try, but I'm not going to find it. I don't have time.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping at some point. I was going to say, I'm hoping at some point they figure this all out. Like if they're going to do a Ring of Honor, like a network or something, they can move all their content over to that, and then they can maybe drop some of this or rearrange some of it or something. Because they have that entire Ring of Honor library and no place to show it.
They do have a streaming service.
Right, but I'm talking about have it all centralized. Because they also don't have an archive for all their AEW stuff yet, right?
Well, Ring of Honor has their own streaming service with the archive, is what I understood. AEW, I think the problem is, they don't have their own dedicated service, and I think they're holding out that Warner Brothers is going to give them some money towards showing it on Max. I mean, look, I'll be honest. If they did like WWE Network was and what they are with Peacock now, and it was a flat fee, I already get Max. I'd be thrilled with that. I mean, most of the time, there's been a few AEW pay-per-views I haven't watched just simply because I'm like, I'm not paying for it, and B, I don't want to necessarily be trying to find a source somewhere online to watch it that way. I mean, you do want to support the product in some way as best, within reason. And that's the other thing that makes it hard. They're charging what, $50 an event, I believe. Meanwhile,
that sounds right.
Meanwhile, if you're an Xfinity subscriber, at a minimum, you get in Peacock the ad version included free. If you're not, $5 a month, I believe, or it might have went up to $7 for the ad. and then it's like 10 or 13 for the ad free. That's still cheap, and that's not just WWE. If you're into Premier League, that's on there. There's movies, there's TV shows, like old and Peacock exclusive stuff. So it's not like you're just getting wrestling. So do I pay less money, get the WWE event and all this other content, or do I pay $50 for AEW?
Well,
And I'm
also,
sorry to those of you that are paying the $50. You get a good show. I don't know if it's worth $50.
If you bought a ticket to be there, you'd spend that more than that.
yeah,
There's
but that's
something about
going
being in the
person.
crowd. It's a different environment.
See, I think AEW is missing the boat. Like, I think you should be able to order the pay-per-view and get a free T-shirt or something. Like, I think they should start trying different promotions. You know, and what am I paying for? You know, that I couldn't get over in WWE. Well, what's the alternative? Well, I don't know. Send me something. You know, or if I buy the show, let me get the DVD of the show or a download of the show. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Come up with some other promotional items or something. I don't know. They're not, to me, they can't follow the same formula as WWE. So they should be experimenting in other areas, and I don't think they really are. And I just want to say, before anybody says anything else, we might want to try to move ahead to the next topic because we still have a ton of things to talk about. So if you got any final thoughts, Jason or Anthony, why don't you throw them out there, and then we'll make our picks.
I said my piece. Now we need to move on because I'm falling asleep.
I will say this.
Is that me? That was a terrible impression of me. And
I'm not trying to impersonate you.
And I wish you would have done it in your British accent.
I wasn't trying to impersonate you. I was just saying what I thought you were thinking and saying.
I was just trying to move the show along a little bit. That's all.
Yeah.
Just no more, no less.
One quick thing.
Did you see that? My lights flickered. He's sending his evil powers to my home.
That's what happens. One quick thing. You mentioned NXT and always being in that same location. It looks like they're doing some live events now, but only in the state of Florida, it seems. But they're starting to spread out. Have they? Because I hadn't seen them really advertise them before, and now it seems like they're trying to push it.
No, they used to have a scrolling marquee at the bottom of the show, but I think they must be selling enough in Florida that they're not. I wish they would tour a little bit more and go to some of the small arenas. Like the first time I saw NXT at the Mid Hudson Civic Center, it was a house show. I saw them in Asbury Park at the Boardwalk Hall. That was also a house show. That was really fun. I wish
was that the black and gold era?
Yeah.
So the funny thing about the black and gold era, that roster was like what AEW's roster is in terms of people who've been around and doing stuff, just hadn't done it for WWE yet. But I don't know. People were invested in them then. And I'm hoping AEW can get people invested in them.
Because it was better booking than the main show. That's why.
That's a good point. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it right there. It's the booking. It comes back to booking.
Double or nothing.
Speaking of booking, what a lead-in for this Trios Championship match, huh?
Well, from what I understand, this match is not official yet, right? Because the Guns and Ray Phoenix and Penta have to fight at Collision, and if they win, they get the Trios title match. Is that what I read? Or I remember from the show? So, I mean, I think it's going to happen, but I think there was a pre-qualifier for this.
See, once again, that's something that should have been built over a couple of weeks, not over. Well, I mean,
I don't know why it's necessary. It hasn't been built over a couple of weeks. Pac, the Guns. Going after Pac.
If you want this match, you have to qualify for it. That type of thing. That should take place over a couple of weeks.
Well, what I'm saying is that's not even necessary. Pac came out, right? The Death Triangle's back together. Let's let them have the match on the pay-per-view. We don't need an additional match in between. You know what I mean? And if you've already announced a pay-per-view, we already know that the Guns are going to lose, right? Otherwise, you lose a pay-per-view match. So don't bother.
I'm just reading on Fightful that this match is already official.
Okay, because I thought on the show they have a pre-qualifier. Because I think they're wrestling at Collision or Rampage, one of the shows. And if they win, they get the Trios match. But all right, whatever.
I don't know. The Wikipedia page for the show is also showing the match already, so I don't know what's going on there.
All right. Well, either way, who do you like?
I could give two shits. This should be on the 0 hour along with Trent Beretta versus Orange Cassidy.
I mean, I think the Bang Bang Gang is still going to win.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to take the title off them yet, or titles.
Neither do I.
I wouldn't put the belts on Death Triangle for one simple reason. Somebody's going to get hurt or get detained in Mexico again for a visa issue.
Mm-hmm. It's
I'm
always
not
Ray
trying to be
Phoenix,
funny.
one or the other.
Huh?
It's always Ray Phoenix. So.
Okay. So we have for the FTW title. Don't read that screen because it's slightly wrong. It's actually a triple
Shibata,
threat.
right?
It's a triple threat. It's Katsuri. I'm sorry to our Japanese fans. I butchering that. Katsuri, Shibata, and Hook both challenging Chris Jericho, the Learning Tree, for the FTW Championship, FTW Rules match.
And it's the For the World Championship.
Yeah, so what's the For the World rules? Because it's not the Fuck the World.
That's a good point.
Here's a match I certainly don't give two shits about. I mean, at least the Guns match will be entertaining. This match, I think, is just going to be a slog. Because Jericho moves like rice pudding now. So, I guess Jericho, I don't know, I don't care.
I'm picking Jericho for it. I don't hate the gimmick. It's just, he's not as fast as he used to be, but I don't hate the Learning Tree gimmick.
No, I actually think I've been enjoying it. I tell you, and this is where your title rebooking committee for the show would have been interesting if we went that route. I think it would have been interesting not to have an FTW title match. You have Hook facing Big Bill with the opportunity for the FTW title match on the line. And you could have done Jericho Hook 2 at Forbidden Door or something. I don't know. Dynamite.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny. And this is a knock on AEW and WWE. Last week on AEW, and this goes into one of the matches later, we had Mercedes Moné put through a table by Willow Nightingale. The very next night, Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul do the same exact spot. This week, it was in reverse. NXT did a double pin to decide the number one contenders for the North American title shot. And the very next night, AEW did it for the FTW champion. I was like, what are you watching each other's shows and stealing ideas that blatantly now? Like,
I hate contract signings. That's so stupid.
I think they're well done if they did it more UFC style, where maybe they would like get into an argument and security would just step in and that's the end of it, or they just sign the contract and walk away. So you're right. Every single time somebody goes through a table or there's some sort of brawl every single time. Anyway.
All right. So we all pick Jericho?
I'm trying to decide between Jericho and Hook, to be honest with you. I don't want to waste everybody's time, so go ahead. I will announce my pick before we end.
Sounds good. I like the suspense.
No, it's more a case of I'm trying to keep it moving, as Rob suggested.
All right, then next up is Trent
Beretta versus Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, this is the match of the night for you, right? This is what you're looking forward to the most.
This is my bathroom break.
Yeah. Also, Trent Beretta is a good wrestler. I don't think they're all good wrestlers. They can all wrestle. It's just I don't care about
to be a loser.
Story. Yeah. It's like it's hard to
I don't know how he and Chuck didn't get a world title reign in the beginning at least. So now who cares? And I mean, and what I don't understand how this match has no stipulations. They're in the middle of a horrible feud where they've tried to really injure each other. How is this a straight wrestling match? They've already had a straight wrestling match.
I also hope that whatever role Don Callis has with either one of these guys, they clarify it, because he's interested in Orange Cassidy thing. I'm like, it's going to be Trent. Stop wasting our freaking time with this bullshit.
Do you think that's what's going to happen? You think Callis is going to interfere and Trent Beretta is going to win?
The problem is they love Cassidy. They like to put him over so often.
But I mean, if Orange Cassidy wins here, then the feud at this point should be over, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think pinned him twice.
Yeah, I think I'll go Trent, honestly.
So I'm going to go Trent Beretta, I guess.
Okay. And by the way, I decided to go with Jericho. I think there's more interest in continuing that feud. Jason, you said Trent as well?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And I think this is what I read, and it's dirt sheet bullshit, so who knows. The IWGP Championship Eliminator match, and it's in a Championship Eliminator match, not a title match. Something about IWGP didn't want the title on the line here. It was going to ruin current storylines or something. I don't know. It's weird. I don't get it.
Oh, okay. I do kind of see. This is the thing when you have another company's title on your show, you have to take consideration for what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build up. So that makes sense. That being said, this should not be a pay-per-view match. It's a dynamite match then if it's an eliminator. Go with Takeshita. I know Moxley never loses, but since it's not for the title, I'll go with Takeshita.
Yeah, I mean, this match could make his career. Really could. Moxley really doesn't lose. And I think they're going to start building him up as one of Swerve's challengers. So I think, because I don't think he's going to win the IWGP title. He's an AEW guy. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think Takeshita should win.
I'm still sticking with Moxley. I think this is just to get Takeshita and Moxley on the card because they had nothing else for them. All right, for the AEW TNT title, it's a barbed wire steel cage match.
Seems kind of extreme for the TNT title, don't you think?
A little bit.
If they had already had a one-on-one match, I would be okay with this. It seems weird that this is their first encounter and that's what they're going with. But on Dynamite, they did. I would say it wasn't a bloodbath. It was a blood and guts bath because that was some thick fucking shit that they dumped all over Malachi Black. I was like, oh my God, there's like chunks in the ring. What the hell? It's been interesting.
I mean, this match.
It's a weird storyline, but it's been interesting. It's like a whole mind game thing, and Adam Copeland's like personality changing at random times.
I mean, don't you feel like this is the match Malachi Black has to win?
Yes.
Otherwise, his whole AEW stint has been a waste.
It's already been a waste.
Because he's only got he's got a trios title to his name, and he's clearly a talented man who they have not taken full advantage of.
That's what Zelina said.
So I mean, to me, I'm gonna go. I think Malachi Black should win. I'm gonna pick him, even though they're probably gonna put Copeland over, which I don't agree with at all. If Copeland's here at this point, he should be starting to put people over.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, and I think Copeland has creative control, and I think he's willing to put people over at the right time, and I think this is one of those.
If they've given him creative control, they're stupid as hell. And I'll give you 2 words why. Hulk, Hogan. Anytime you give a guy creative control, he never loses. You can't do it. I don't understand that.
I beg to differ.
Wrestlers should never have creative control because they don't do what's best for business. They do what's best for themselves.
I think it depends on the individual. I think it depends on the individual. I think historically you're right. Historically I think you're right. But I think we got a generation of wrestlers now. We've joked about how some of them are fanboys left and right.
All right, but who currently is doing that?
We don't know who has creative control now.
Right, but I'm saying you're making an argument that you don't agree with what I said. So how are you backing that up? Who do you think is doing the right thing? I see a 40-plus-year-old Randy Orton still beating a lot of people. I see Adam Copeland beating a lot of people. I see Chris Jericho still beating a lot of people. And at what age should they start putting people over?
Jericho has put people over. He put over Ricky Starks. He put over Orange Cassidy. He's put over people before. So Jericho, I think is actually a good example of someone who doesn't always have to go over. And Copeland's been here a few months. And let's be honest, up until about 2 months ago, he was feuding with Christian. And he put Christian over. And I'm not saying Christian's an up and comer. I totally get that, but I feel like Copeland, they wanted to get Copeland and Christian out of the way first, so that people are going to be sitting there like, all right, when are they going to go back to this? Okay, let's knock it out right now. Well, let's see. I don't think Copeland's got the ego that like a Dusty Rhodes would have, or a Hulk Hogan would have.
The other example you should have used was Danielson, because
He never has
he
to
puts
win.
people over.
Yeah. But we don't know that for a fact that any of them, even Jericho, have creative control officially. We're assuming, even with Copeland.
I think they have influence. I don't know if they have control, but they have influence.
Yeah.
So, okay. Timeless Toni Storm and Serena Deeb for the AEW Women's World Championship. Does anybody see Serena Deeb winning here?
No.
They could put this on Collision or the 0 Hour.
Can I tell you something about this match?
Sure.
So, preach.
I mentioned this to you guys in the pre-show there, when we were doing our prep here. There was a little bit of an argument about how they were setting this up and how they've been booking the setup for this match, where you can't tell who's the good guy and who's the bad guy from week to week. And it was just like less than a week ago, Toni Storm had a match against I think it was I always still call her Paige, but her sidekick or whatever. Soraya's sidekick that she was bringing up. And they had a full back and forth match, and it didn't make her look good in terms of being a champion that's hard to beat or to make sympathy for Serena Deeb or anything. It was just a plain old match where it's I'll look good and then you'll look good, and I'll look good and you'll look good. So the booking for the match doesn't tell me anything. The fact that they want to probably sell some Toni Storm shirts or something like that, that tells me that Toni Storm is going to win. That people really like and tweet and go on social media and enjoy her gimmick and probably pay to see her fight. Yeah, that tells me Toni Storm's going to win. But they have done nothing to book it that way. That's all. That's all I just want to say.
Here's the problem.
That's more effort than they did in the storyline for this match.
Serena Deeb came out and gave this very impassioned interview that nobody cared about. Like she said, she said the thing and turned at the crowd to get their rallying points, and they were like, "Yay! Oh yeah, we're supposed to clap here. Where's Toni Storm?" I mean, she's an excellent wrestler. She has zero personality. She can't pull off. She should be able to pull off the arrogant, Regal type situation. She can't do it. She can't pull off the sympathetic fan favorite. She just doesn't have it. That's that part of her that's missing. How I hate to bring up his name, but Chris Benoit, personality, right? He could wrestle, but he never stayed at the top long because he had no personality. I feel like she's in that boat where she could put up a good match, and she's a really great technical wrestler, but she's got zero charisma, none. And physically she's in great shape, but there's nothing about her physically that makes you want to go wow. She doesn't have that intangible. So I think she'll always be either a transitional champion or a perennial contender. I don't really see. And with the way Toni Storm is right now, I mean, I can't believe she's still hot after all this time. People still just go crazy. She hasn't lost momentum at all, and I don't know how that's possible. So, good for her. All right. For the International Championship, we have Roderick Storm versus Will Ospreay. What happened? Did I not go to you guys? Well, because Anthony put Toni Storm down for everybody, so I didn't know if there was going to be anything else to say.
I was trying to save
us. Let me back up a second.
Yeah, I was just trying to save some time. All I was going to say is Deeb hasn't shown any charisma since she was in the Straight Edge Society. That's not her strong suit.
Right. Reverend, I apologize. Humbly.
No, he said his piece because I joked that he spent.
I was advocating on behalf of the encyclopedia there.
Oh, he had nothing to say, so you advocated for nothing. All right.
Yeah.
No. I said my
Okay,
piece.
a
I said my
lesson
piece.
learned.
I said my
Right.
piece. I
For the international championship, we have Roderick Strong
Okay,
versus
forget
Ospreay. Go ahead, Encyclopedia. What do you got?
as far as Toni Storm, she keeps evolving that character and every time you think where else can she take it, like the whole thing with the Deeb and the flag and the stripping down thing behind it, like and Mariah May's like I'll give her credit. She keeps finding ways to carry this character on because I don't think anyone thought we were going to get any more than 4 months out of it. So good for her in that respect. I feel bad for her because I think her challenger nobody gives a shit about. She could go out there and wrestle a broom and get more reaction or the same reaction as she would this match.
Well, if it's in black and white, no doubt. I'd watch that.
They should have Serena Deeb just dress up as like Betty Boop or something in black and white and really go all out. I don't know. Anyway, Roderick Strong versus Will Ospreay. Is anyone picking against Strong here?
Ospreay, of course.
It's gotta be.
I'm sorry, I meant Os. Is anyone picking against Ospreay?
Oh, okay. Oh, in that case, yeah, no.
Is anyone picking Strong here? That's what I should have said.
No.
Sorry, folks. I had a couple ciders before we started here. No, I really didn't, and apparently I can't do a copy and paste properly either on this fucking thing.
I don't know who Kishori Shabbat is either, so.
Still learning Mac.
Not
you
even
would think after 6 months I could do a copy and paste on a Mac. Nope.
All right.
So we got a triple main event. We got Mercedes Moné getting a title shot against Willow Nightingale, which I found interesting. A friend who is a wrestling fan was saying, I don't understand this match. There's been no build to this, what have you. And I was like, there's history there, and they played into it. You're not paying attention.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history.
There is.
That said, does anyone actually think Willow's winning this?
No.
No.
As a matter of fact, I think we're going to get a turn.
Stokely turn?
No, not Stokely.
Stokely with Mercedes would be interesting, actually. But anyway.
No, what's her name?
Statlander.
Statlander.
Yeah, we're getting a heel turn.
Yeah, I could see that. They've been teasing it.
Yeah, it's coming. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Mercedes when they can't lose.
Because what's the point? What's the point otherwise?
I mean, you could have Nightingale win on another like Monet's law, like so worried about re-injuring the ankle that she doesn't show that fire she needs to win. I mean, does Monet have to win here? It's her debut match, so in some respects, yes. In some respects, I don't think it would hurt her that much because honestly, I don't think she's drawing any more than what they were getting before her signing anyway. But
because she hasn't wrestled. Like
she's been on the show every week.
Wrestler.
I think they're going to be. I think she's going to get hurt again really soon, and this contract in the end is not going to be worth the paper it was written on.
It wasn't worth it the second they signed it.
Well, I'm just saying they're not going to get her wrestling money's worth out of her.
The rumor is, what is she supposed to get a $5 million a year? I don't think she's worth $1 million a year. I'd say $500,000 a year, and I like her, but I don't think she's proven consistently to be a draw to be getting that kind of money. And I think WWE saw that.
Yeah, you got to wonder what she asked for from them that they said no.
Yeah.
All right.
For
the AEW World Championship, we have Swerve Strickland versus Christian Cage. Build-up's been pretty interesting for this one, I think. I totally forgot about the whole Nick Wayne connection. So when they brought that in, I'm like, oh, he definitely has an axe to grind with Swerve.
Yeah, I was glad they brought that up.
Yeah, that was good. The whole Mobile Embassy turning on Swerve just for shock value, I was like, that's kind of...
That was unnecessary.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing I thought that was for was to get Swerve at a point where he's fully standing on his own. So, like, he's going to be a face champion.
Yeah, I get that. But, I mean, they could have just phased them out.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you could have had him just come out and be like, you know what, guys? I love you guys, but I'm on my own. And they could have all just, like, high-fived and walked away. They didn't need to, like, beat him up.
Or, I mean, or you don't even show them, and then after the show, they like confront him and say, "Hey, what's going on here? You became champion and you forgot about us." They could have confronted him that way, and then you could have done the splitting. It looked like they got paid off, which was fine. I mean, even if you did something small where Christian said, basically hinted that I paid them off to take you out for me, and they come back and apologize. Or now that you got potential challengers for him on Dynamite or Collision. But that's not what they're doing here. They just did it for shock value. It's like Vince Russo crashed TV.
I'm curious what you do with those guys now, because
they don't
have. They also don't have the guy who is in charge of the embassy in Prince Nana. So I don't know, man. It's
maybe Nana got paid off by Christian Cage too, and we'll find that out. I don't know. I think Brian Cage is really interesting. I think he could be at least an upper mid-carder for them, but
he's another guy. Him, Lance Archer, they never pull the trigger on these guys.
Yeah,
they
look
got
like
everything.
$1 million, but in the end, they don't pull the trigger. I don't know why.
Yeah, and Vince isn't in charge in WWE, so if he had them under WWE ever signed those guys, Triple H isn't as obsessed with the big muscle heads the way Vince is, so they're kind of SOL. Their best bet might be to go to New Japan. Anyway.
Are we going Swerve across the board?
I really want to go Christian. I like Christian better, but yeah, I don't think you're driving Swerve. Yeah, I don't think you have Swerve win the belt for 6 weeks.
Yeah, no.
Just bad timing for Christian.
Plus, he swerves when he drives,
Does.
Now I don't want to do the rest of the show.
Bye.
Okay. See ya.
The last match is Anarchy in the Arena. We have the Elite, which is made up of the Young Bucks, Okada, and Jack Perry.
He doesn't know how to say his first name.
Why bother? Everybody knows who Okada is.
It's true.
Not necessarily. They're not drawing on TV with him.
Bryan Danielson and Darby Allin. Anybody got any guesses? I think the Elite's probably going to take this one away.
I love how he leads with, does anyone have any guesses? By the way, here's mine.
Well, I am anybody.
So you're talking to yourself now?
I often do. It's the only conversation worth having.
It's the only. It's because the only one listening. Yeah, I
watch
can't even.
Anthony's brain short circuit.
Elite. Forget it. I'm not even going to try. Elite.
Yeah, I think they kind of have to win this. I don't see the point if the Elite doesn't win.
Oh, Swerve's going to win it, according to Anthony. That's great, man. I
told you I can't copy and paste with this freaking thing, right? I hate Max.
He's got Swerve winning all the matches. I don't know how he's going to beat Willow. So.
Well, some people like the male versus female type matches, intergender matches. I know. I'm not one of them.
Me neither. All right. So what are we moving on to? The show is going to be 5 hours long.
It is.
Do we want to go to our King of the Ring picks?
Or do you want to do your King of the Ring top 5 leading into the picks?
We can do that. So lead us off. Who's your number 5?
Why me? So for my King of the Ring top 5, I wanted to acknowledge not necessarily the best tournament winners or the best wrestlers that won, but also the ones. It's a combination of things. It's also the ones who did the most with the being king. And that's as far as I'll go because we're losing Rob anyway, and I didn't want to get into too much more detail than that. So my number 5, and believe it or not, I can't believe I'm about to say this because I thought it was one of the most annoying kings of all time just because of his second for a minute and a half announcing and singing this person's praises. But my number 5 is King Booker. I think he really made it interesting. He really played into that king role with the pinky and the fancy talk. Did him 10 times better job than I did in the opening of the show, let's be honest. And I'm not a Booker T fan by any means. I never really understood him, but he definitely owned that king game, Mike. And Rob and I saw his title reign end while he was King Booker. We saw Batista kick his ass in Survivor
I
Series.
love Booker T. I think Booker T was highly entertaining. I loved when he teaming with Goldust.
I was just watching clips of that.
I just saw that recently too on YouTube. I found some kind of video. It's all their stuff together, and I mean, when he and Austin
We're
had the
talking
fight
about kings.
in the
He wasn't a king then.
supermarket. All right, well, that's not my point. You said you were never a fan of Booker T, so I was saying I am. I think he was entertaining. Jason, who's your number 5?
My number 5 is, hold on, let me pull up my list here. My number 5 is William Regal. And it's, I mean, what in the name? He
By the way,
been king.
Before you
it was
continue,
his coronation that did it for me. Sorry,
okay,
go ahead.
I was going to ask what was your criteria. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Sorry.
yeah. In this case, yes, because I did have an honorable mention, but I'll save that one for after because it'll make sense afterwards.
We're almost at the 1 hour mark. No honorable mentions tonight.
Oh, you're all gonna hear it. No,
that could be on Preaching for the Pulpit.
Oh boy, all right, we are never gonna get done tonight.
Yeah, I just told you, William Regal. That was it. Okay. Number 5.
All right, my number 5 is Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar had to beat Bubba Ray, Booker T, and Test, and Rob Van Dam to become King of the Ring. Pretty impressive list for a pretty young wrestler at the time. So that's my number 5.
So what's our criteria for top 5?
I just picked the 5 I thought were the most impressive.
Okay, that works.
Fair enough.
So why don't you continue on with your number 4? Who impressed you with number 4?
Okay, my number 4 is Edge. I mean, I think for a long time people thought of Edge was just a tag team wrestler, and I think him winning this tournament kind of moved him up to that next level where you could see him as a main eventer. So that's my number 4.
My number 4 is Kurt Angle, and just so you know, my criteria is what did you do with this gimmick? What did you do with the King of the Ring gimmick? And it was the dorkiest freaking thing ever. I enjoyed it. King Kurt. Only he could have pulled it off like that, to that ridiculousness.
All right, and my number 4, it was really his coming out moment, and he became really one of the top draws of all time. Stone Cold Steve Austin is my number 4. That's where we got Austin 316 from. But I mean, I think going into that pay-per-view, I remember watching that thing thinking it was going to be Mero and Vader in the final. Just admittedly didn't know a ton about Stunning Steve in WCW, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I became a fan that night. I mean, Austin didn't really live the King gimmick, which is why I have him rated lower. But I don't think any top 5 list you cannot include Austin when that's really what started getting people's eyes opened with him. I'm going to move on to my number 3. And as I mentioned, pretty much all my picks did something with the kingship in some way, shape, or form, whether they made it or maybe whether they had fun with it. And mine is the second tournament on pay-per-view winner, Owen Hart. I mean, he turned that gimmick. Not only did he go through everybody, he bragged about how he wanted to outdo what his brother did before. And then he turned him into the whole King of Hearts gimmick. So he really took that kingship and took it to another level in my mind, more so than his brother the previous year. So Owen Hart is my number 3.
My number 3 is Kurt Angle, pretty much for what Jason's reasons were.
Okay, cool. My number 3 is Booker T, for a lot of what you mentioned, but also because that gimmick turned his whole career around. I mean, he became a world champion in WWE because of that gimmick. So, in terms of doing something with the crown, got to be one of the best.
He also had a bad English accent too.
Oh, he did, and then he would switch it up every so often and go back to Houston. Oh, wow, just magnifique.
That's where Zelina Vega stole it from, I guess, huh? When she was queen.
Yes, she did. She
Like
did
talk
the
royalty. She'd be like, "Oh, you peasants, don't you start listening to me right now." By the
yes.
way,
It was
I guess
it was a great thing. It was a great gimmick.
I guess we all gave him his flowers, so I guess we all hail King Booker.
Yeah, but
Booker.
why he's not
Booker.
on the list for me is because we ended up with Queen Charmel.
I tell you, I learned the mute button on my remote control very quickly thanks to her.
The hate that she got for how raucously she would scream out his name made the gimmick even better, because you can't be a good guy with somebody doing that and pissing everybody off so much. Ah. I'll turn it around and just give you my number 2. Number 2 is Stone Cold, and for a lot of the reasons that you shared before, but also because Austin 316 is, in my opinion, the most important promo of modern wrestling. So you don't get that without him winning King of the Ring.
My number 2 is Owen Hart for reasons previously mentioned. I think he almost did the most by winning that title.
All right, and my number 2 was actually a 2-time tournament winner, one of which wasn't on pay-per-view, and I mean, really for the first one on pay-per-view. Great way to really introduce people to the tournament and really this whole King of the Ring concept, which had previously been on house shows only, was to have the first winner be Bret the Hitman Hart. And it, even though he didn't necessarily go around parading the kingship all over the place, it also helped a man from Tennessee become really a bona fide main eventer. A lot of people didn't know who the hell Jerry the King Lawler was, and the whole feud over the kingship that really put Jerry Lawler at least in the spotlight in a way that people like, all right, this guy's something, and myself included. I didn't know about Jerry Lawler up until his WWE and WWF debut. So yeah. So I'll go on to my number 1 then, and actually this guy is, if you want to talk about somebody that owned that King gimmick, this guy was definitely it. He did not win the tournament. He won it in a match. And he definitely knew how to do just more than be a king. He also knew how to snap into a Slim Jim. It's the Macho King Randy Savage is my number 1. And thank you, Jason, for doing the imitations while I was leading into it. Ooh, yeah. Dig it.
Got to agree.
Man, it always sounded like he was constipated.
It was great.
My number 1 is Stone Cold, because, like Jason said, it was probably the most important promo ever. And again, put him really on the map, right? I mean, he was the ringmaster, and he was going nowhere, and suddenly, he utters Austin 316, and the shirts and took off. So Austin's my number 1.
And I am sure you can guess from my wild agreement with the encyclopedia there, my number 1 is indeed the Macho King, Randy Savage. And for the most important reason, that was the first King of the Ring I knew about. I didn't know anything about that before, but I knew who Macho Man was, and I started getting into wrestling when I was like 9, 10 years old. And that's my King of the Ring. That's my king, Macho King.
The very first match I really actually saw before, and it was before I became a fan, was Macho King against Hulk Hogan with Buster Douglas as the referee. That was the very first match I ever saw. And I didn't, I mean, I wasn't captivated necessarily by Macho King then, but I want to thank you both for doing this top 5 thing. I know this isn't something we've done in a while, and I love doing this stuff. We got through it pretty quickly, but I'm going to be honest. Usually you'll see me try to counter some of your picks or tease you a little bit, but if I don't agree, but I think we did a bang up job on this one across the board. So thank you guys.
It's a great list. By the way, my honorable mention was King Haku. Because who was going to tell
now you
him
ruined
he wasn't?
it.
But wait a minute, he didn't win the King of the Ring tournament.
He didn't win the tournament. They just made him king.
Well, Macho Man.
Bobby Heenan made him king. And the reason I always liked King Haku, but I didn't count him because he wasn't in the tournaments. Because who the hell is going to tell him? Who would tell him? Oh no, you're not. No, you're really not king.
Who?
Who?
Oh, God, help me.
Rob, I will say that I said the top 5 King of the Rings. I didn't necessarily say King of the Ring tournament winners. So, even though I think he's wrong on honorable mention, and he just threw all that praise I bestowed upon both of you.
You
Now
don't
he's
have
gonna...
respect for King Haku?
No, I don't.
You know, for
Would
a
you
Revan,
tell
you
King
certainly don't
Haku
follow
that?
rules.
If you said Harley Race, I would respect you more than you saying Haku.
I see that was before I had ever gotten into it. So I just
All right.
respect
You
King.
do realize Haku and Harley
Yes.
Race?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I do.
All right.
I do.
Just making sure.
But also because it's Haku. It's Haku.
He's so proud of himself right now.
I'm not proud. I just have adoration for Haku. I don't understand how you can't.
I don't like Haku. I like Ming.
Fair enough. Who could take who in a fight?
All right. So this weekend we do have the King and Queen of the Ring. Some interesting developments came out of that, which we'll get into in a little bit. So let's start off with picks for the two of the non-tournament matches on the card. We have for the Women's Championship, we have Becky Lynch defending against Liv Morgan. And an interesting caveat here. Supposedly, Becky Lynch's contract is up in a few weeks. And there's been no announcement that she's re-signed, which makes it really much more interesting even than where we were already.
She's not going anywhere.
But is she taking a break?
The only reason why I can see her stepping away is if they want to have another kid.
But what if she wanted to take a break and try something else for a while? I don't think she'd go necessarily to another company, but maybe she'd rather try TV for a while or just take a break for a while and not wrestle.
I'm in the middle of reading her book, and she already did the acting thing for a while. So I don't think she's going anywhere. I just don't think they have anything ready to announce as of yet. I'll go say what I've always said. I don't understand Liv Morgan. I just don't get it. She doesn't look tough. I just don't get it. I don't know. I guess I'm going to go with Becky because I don't really see what the point of giving Liv Morgan the belt is.
Yeah, it's.
What are you guys playing chicken here?
No, it's tough because on the one hand they put all this stuff into that whole Liv Morgan story with the revenge and getting a revenge on people and ending up with the title, and there will be a time where she has that title and Rhea Ripley comes back. I mean, it's building up to that. I just don't know why it would be now. I don't think it would be now, so I think Becky holds her off until the next pay-per-view or PLE, and then I think you'll see Liv worm her way into being a title holder again. But for now, I think it's Becky.
So you're seeing a rematch at Clash of the Castle in Scotland?
I could see that. Becky losing in the UK, that wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, you also have the idea of,
That's
okay,
a Vince
let's...
thing to do. It's a Vince thing.
I could also see them going away from Becky and Liv for a while, or Liv's kind of in the background, but she's still there, and then Liv win Money in the Bank and nail her and cash in.
That's another way.
I think they put the belt on Becky quickly because they weren't necessarily ready to pull the trigger on Liv. And apparently, and I missed this, but apparently in the background on Raw, Liv and Dominic were on the screen. And I'm wondering if they reveal that Dominic and Liv, something's going on there, and that leads to why Becky loses the title. And maybe we'll get intergender Becky versus Dominic. I don't like intergender matches, but that one would be fucking interesting and entertaining.
I still remember when she knocked the taste out of his mouth. Yeah.
So I actually think Liv's going to win here, and I don't understand Liv either, Rob. I do agree with you on that, but I think I don't. This whole new revenge tour thing, I don't see how they could really continue it if she loses again. They didn't put the belt on her to begin with. They put it on Becky.
But
If you
what's
have
the
her lose to
revenge
Becky, then
tour?
what?
What's
But
the
the revenge
revenge
was
tour if
supposed to
she
be against
wins?
was supposed to be against Rhea Ripley, right?
No, that was they made a
It's
big
across the
point of
board.
it. It's across, yeah, it's everybody.
I'm
Anybody
gonna
can
stick
get
with
it.
Mickey.
Hmm?
I'm gonna
Sticking
stick
with Becky.
Yeah, you can.
Hmm.
No, you both can stick with Becky, and you're probably right. I think personally, for Liv's character and the direction they're going in, I think a loss here would hurt her too much. And I could see Dominic being involved in the title change.
That seems like it would come out of left field, but all right. I mean, I guess we'll see.
I mean,
So the WWE. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, the other thing, and there's been photos leaking of all of them in Saudi. I don't think Dominic's there, so I'm probably wrong. But it would be real clever if they kept him photo shy, out of any photos, and then all of a sudden he appeared. Anyway, Rob, you were saying Intercontinental Championship triple
So
threat.
the Intercontinental Championship, we have Sami Zayn champion versus Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed. I feel like Sami Zayn's got to get some new challengers. These are all guys that we've seen several times on Raw already, and I'm really sick of both of them. I don't think they're gonna take off the title off Sami yet. I mean, this would be the time for Chad Gable to win if he was gonna win, but they don't seem to want to pull the trigger on him. So I don't know about you guys, but I think Sami retains.
And I feel like it's another occasion where they need to pull the trigger on Chad because if he loses again. But the thing with Chad is you do have now Otis as does he want to stick with Chad or does he not like what Chad's doing? They kind of played both angles on Raw. So I'm going to agree with you. I also think I really hate to say this because I do like the guy, but Bronson Reed, I think he needs to go back to New Japan. Except for the tsunami finisher, I don't think the U.S. fans are buying into him.
Well, they're also teasing Chad Gable with the Creeds, right?
Yeah,
So
and
I could see him losing and dumping Alpha Academy and going with the Creeds.
Yeah, and I'm drawing a blank. Who the lady with the creeds?
The short, muscular
Ivy
looking
Nile.
thing.
Ivy Nile. Thank you very much. Wow, I can't believe I was drawing a name blank on her. I think the Ivy is actually going to nail Maxine to get her out of Alpha Academy and with the creeds. The creeds Chad Gable rumor has been there for a while. It makes sense. Ivy has not been mentioned in that. I think Ivy's the reason why Maxine is eventually out of Alpha Academy. I think she nails her. By the way, Reverend?
Yeah, it's weird because I want Chad Gable to have a run, and I feel like he's been so close so many times, and they just won't do it. And I just don't think they're going to do it again. And for reasons you guys mentioned, I mean, it gives them a reason to break up the Alpha Academy. I don't know what happens to all those guys afterwards, but they'll figure that out. Yeah, I think Sammy's gonna hold on to it.
All right. So the next two matches we were going to pick is for the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring finals. The trouble there is, as you all know, if you've been longtime listeners, and granted, this is only our second week under the new branding, but Sold Out was together for well over 5 years. We don't know what the finals are, but it was announced today that the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring winners will be getting a title shot at SummerSlam, which makes things really interesting here. So in that respect, we have Lyra Valkyria. She's in the final for the Queen of the Ring. She's facing the winner, Bianca Belair versus Nia Jax. So do we want to make the pick assuming we know who's going to win at SmackDown tomorrow, or would we rather we unofficially do it privately off record, which I think is better, and more discuss of the three that are left in both King and Queen of the Ring, who would make the best challenger for SummerSlam? And just a quick casual conversation.
I don't think we should make our picks until we know who the final contenders are.
Yeah.
Okay, so of the three, Lyra, Bianca, and Nia Jax, we're assuming that they can only challenge for the same brand, but now let's think outside the box. Of those three, who do you think should get Queen of the Ring and get the title shot? So not who you think's going to win, but who you believe would make the most sense to win.
Nia Jax is going to be Queen of the Ring.
Okay.
They're going to reward her for quote unquote good behavior. She hasn't hurt anybody. Her character has actually not been as awful as in the past.
Mhm.
They didn't give her the world championship, but this is a way
Yeah.
to kind of fix that. Well, I mean, this is a way to kind of fix that, right? You let her win Queen of the Ring.
Do you see her beating Bailey or Becky or?
Yes, unfortunately, I do. I think she's going to beat Bailey.
I think yeah, of the three, I'm gonna agree with you, and I really like Lia Valkyria. I was really torn on the.
Too soon.
Yeah, I like Lyra a lot. I love Io Sky. They're two of my favorites in the women's division. Bailey is the third, and I like Tiffany Stratton. So there's a few there, but Lyra beating Io Sky, I didn't see that coming. I figured it was going to come down to Io Bianca too, especially there's history there. So this has really been interesting, and it actually is interesting also in the respect of you never know with a tournament if it was a real tournament, if it was a real life thing. So thinking outside the box. So now Lyra versus Bianca, Lyra versus Nia. It's a first time match. There's been no build to it. It just happened to work this way because of the way the tournament went. So I think it's interesting. But yeah, I would say Nia would probably make the best option for a challenger at SummerSlam. Reverend, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to go with Nia also. I mean, she's earned it. If I'm thinking outside of what I see on TV, she's earned it clearly. If it's your brand, there are a million ways to get to Bianca Belair versus Bailey again, because they've been building for that match at some point anyway. And yeah, I just don't think Lyra's ready. She's still in that I'm happy to be here mode. She's gonna have to get into her actual character, so that'll be a while. But Nia Jax, yeah, I could see her. If Becky retains and Bailey's still champ by that point, yeah, I mean she's a credible threat at this point. Could see it.
At least one of the things I'm glad they got rid of in their NXT run and they didn't bring it in WWE. Do you remember when Lyra debuted and they were doing that phony raining
Rain.
thing, like in the arena thing, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I'm so glad they got rid of that. Okay, so I will be so bold as I'll make my King of the Ring final pick. Obviously, I have till 1 p.m. on Saturday, but I'm thinking Gunther. But if we're talking about best challenger for SummerSlam, I could see Gunther going after Cody. I could see Randy Orton going after Cody and bringing into that whole legacy storyline coming back after all these years. I was your mentor. You haven't surpassed me yet with Orton, sort of thing. I don't see the winner facing the Raw champion because I'm going to be honest. I don't think Damian Priest is getting past getting out of Scotland with that belt. I think Drew's getting the belt. And even if Damian does, I think we potentially see triple threat with him and Punk and Drew when Punk comes back out of injury. So I don't see the winner of this going on to face Damian Priest. I think no matter who it is, it's going to ultimately be Cody.
I think this is a problem. I don't think they wanted Gunther to already be, because I think Gunther should be world champion. So if he wins the King of the Ring and he faces Cody, I don't see how you have Gunther lose. Right?
I'm fine with
what else
that.
does he have to accomplish? I mean, what else does he have to accomplish? Right? He's the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. He wins King of the Ring. You're not going to have him win the World Championship. So I would have thought Cody's reign would be longer. But if they're going to have Gunther win King of the Ring, I don't see how he loses at SummerSlam. So would he have Cody win it back? Because I know they keep talking about the next WrestleMania being him and The Rock, which
doesn't need a title.
Well, I mean, I don't know why anybody even wants to see that. I mean, The Rock's going to be another year older. He's not, he doesn't wrestle anymore. But whatever. I would have thought they would want Gunther to be pushed out a little more. But, and the Randy Orton thing is interesting, but I don't think that needs to be that doesn't need to be on a major pay-per-view. That can be on a, one of their smaller ones, I guess. I don't know. I think Gunther wins. I could put that down now. I don't think Tama Tonga has a shot against Randy Orton. And I like Orton Gunther. I think that would be a good match, but Gunther should win that too.
Yeah, Gunther has to be King of the Ring. I feel like it's safe to put Gunther down as my pick for King of the Ring.
I mean, I think Nia is a safe bet too, but you don't have to put it down yet. We'll make sure that
The only
it
reason
actually
I don't want to
happens.
put her down is because we don't know yet. We really don't know.
Yeah, because you could just, and I think one of you mentioned it, Bianca Bailey. There's history there too that you could lead into. And actually, it would be full circle because Bailey came back from injury and debuted Damage Control
At SummerSlam.
At SummerSlam with Bianca and Becky in the ring.
Very true.
All right, Universal Championship. We have the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes facing off against the U.S. champion Logan Paul. Now, it's only for the Universal Championship, folks. If you've been watching SmackDown, it was supposed to be title for title, and then all of a sudden Logan Paul insinuated Cody hadn't done enough to get a title shot. Yeah, like you have, Logan. And Nick Aldis blew a gasket, and Cody says, "I'll handle it," and then proceeds to sign the contract. And I'm like, "Are you a fucking idiot?" Like, it makes you look so stupid. I mean, am I the only one that thought Cody was stupid for signing that contract after he was talking about, "Oh, I never won the U.S. title for title, blah, blah, blah." And then all of a sudden, the second Logan says, "No, my belt's on the line," he signs the contract anyway.
Yeah, that's like a territory face dumb move. It's a 1980s.
That's like a rule
face.
breaker move, right? The rule breaker signs a contract and doesn't read it and finds out he's fighting,
Yes.
in a no DQ match, or
Hell in a Cell.
Ric Flair signs a blank contract, doesn't realize Dusty Rhodes' name is the other guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's like you said, territory rule breaker kind of nonsense.
I mean, it kind of makes it even easier to pick a winner than it was before, which was very easy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And they've made a history like for 2024. Yes, Cody finished the story. Cody's been made to look stupid a few times too. Like when he won the Royal Rumble and then insinuated that he was stepping aside for The Rock to get the title shot to begin with. That was like the first time they made him look really dumb. So it's like, I was like, do you need a manager? Do you need someone to talk and make these decisions for you? Because you keep making really stupid decisions.
I was listening to an interview with him.
Are you calling Tony Khan and asking his opinion?
No. But I was listening to an interview with him. Maybe it was Busted Open, and he made a comment. He said, basically, that's why I really loved having Arn with me, because every so often he would just remind me of how I need to look at things. And I thought about that. That's very much showing in how he's presented right now in WWE. Like, he's forgetting he's the man. He doesn't, like, if you compare him to Roman, Roman walks out, there's no question who he thinks is the man. Cody's like, yeah, well, I got to be a good guy. I got to be nice to you guys. Appreciate you all. And I can't wait till he flips that switch.
All right. So, also flipping the switch on change. WWE announced not for 2025. We don't know the location for 2025, but for 2026, SummerSlam is going to be in Minnesota. Consolation prize for not getting WrestleMania next year, which was the original thought. But what I found interesting is, and I think you guys might agree, SummerSlam's going to 2 nights, at least by 2026. Are we ready for another premium live event going over 2 nights? And if so, or if not, can you see a different event, premium live event, getting away with 2 nights? And I'm going to let you guys first before I give my thoughts.
Well, the only show I thought that lent itself to 2 nights is the Rumble, because everybody complained having the men's match and the women's match in the same night was too much. So I could have seen them doing that. I don't know why they'd want to. I don't see how this is going to work, because the thing that makes WrestleMania special is it's 2 nights. By making SummerSlam 2 nights, you're kind of taking away some of WrestleMania's glow. And then, I wrote on here Rumble with a question mark, SummerSlam. So, like, are they going to do their 4 premium events? Are they all going to be 2 nights? Well, I don't know why you'd want to do that. Then you might as well go back to having your Raw pay-per-view and your SmackDown pay-per-view. right? Just have separate. For night 1 is Raw, night 2 is SmackDown. The next one, night 1 is SmackDown, night 2 is Raw. You might as well just go back to switching brands then, because I don't see how they're gonna work that out, and that's asking a lot of people, because a lot of people spend their nut on WrestleMania, right? Flying in, going to the 2 nights, or going to the 2 nights and the Hall of Fame and Raw and SmackDown, and now you're saying, hey, people, fly in for SummerSlam. It's 2 nights, and the Raw before it, and the SmackDown, or the Raw after it, and the SmackDown before it, and they're not that far apart. So you're asking your fans to spend twice as much money, right? So people, fly in from all over the world or travel from all over the country. They're not going to do it twice. People fly all over the world to come to WrestleMania. They don't do that for SummerSlam. They don't do that for the Rumble that we know of for the most part. They don't do that for Survivor Series. It's not the same thing. That'd be like the baseball having 2 World Series or 2 Super Bowls. I don't think it works. I think it's a mistake. So, Reverend, I'm sure you've prayed upon it. What do you think?
I have, and yeah, I don't get it for SummerSlam. SummerSlam, I feel like part of the appeal of that is it's just one night in the middle of the summer. It's just one great night for a fun show in the middle, smack in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the year, and that's it. You get ready for fall and winter, and you're just getting ready for that build up to WrestleMania all of a sudden coming around in the next year. I don't think it needs 2 nights. I don't know what they would do. Building up 2 nights for WrestleMania didn't make sense to me for a bit, and then it finally makes sense for me now, like where they actually build up enough events around that, and it makes sense because WrestleMania is, to use your term, it is your Super Bowl, but and WWE's Super Bowl, but SummerSlam, it doesn't make sense. Royal Rumble, maybe. If I was gonna give something 2 nights from WWE that's not WrestleMania, I would do it an off show and an off PLEs, and it would have to be a tournament. King of the Ring would make sense for a 2-night tournament. Or bring back something else like off to the side and have the Cruiserweight Classic sometime on some random weekend and build up for that for 2 nights, or a tag team, the Dusty Classic, if they want to bring that back. But even that's a stretch. I don't know how you'd get people like that for WWE. I don't know if they'd be able to pull that off. Yeah, I don't get it. And they have time to build it up, but I just don't get it.
So, could I see it being 2 nights? I personally don't want to, but I questioned WrestleMania needing to be the cream of the crop, and it's working for 2 nights. I don't think SummerSlam is the one they should have been debuting the 2-night for. I think the Rumble makes sense. I could even see the argument for Survivor Series if you actually had Survivor Series matches on night 1 leading to a grand finale match of Survival on night 2, or a War Games match or something. You know what I mean? Like we've got in 1990, the winners of Survivor Series, the sole survivors moved on to a grand finale match of Survival. I know it's a hokey concept. I love that concept. I wish they would bring that back. So I could see Survivor Series before SummerSlam. I think what we're really seeing here, and this goes deeper than WWE. WWE is part of the TKO group, which is owned by Endeavor. Endeavor took over the UFC years ago and started oversaturating the market with shows left and right. And I think this is just them doing that again. I think they are seeing profits through quantity and not necessarily quality, and that's what they're going for here. I mean, look, if you were an old school UFC fan, going back to the original days, hats off to you, because it took a while to get to where there was more regulation and it felt like a sport more than like a show or a bar fight or street fight, whatever you want to call it. They got so big though that when they got purchased by Endeavor, it started becoming, and even they were even starting to do this beforehand, but now you got weekly shows. You got shows that you had, and then the pandemic hit. They were doing shows at the UFC Apex. They've still been doing shows at the UFC Apex. This show, NXT Battleground, in a few weeks, that's not the first time you've seen a pay-per-view out of the UFC Apex. Funny enough, UFC is getting out of the Apex because they don't really make money on those shows. I was a hardcore UFC fan. I know Rob, for years, was asking me what I saw in it, and I know he watched a few fights here and there. He never really got into it. I liked the aspects of the different styles and who was going to win. Styles did make fights and what have you. Especially when Conor McGregor started getting to the top, though, they oversaturated the market. There's shows every week. I've lost track. Haven't watched one live probably going back to 2020. It's been 4 years, and Rob knows I flew to Vegas for UFC Fight Week. I never did anything like that for a WWE event. I feel like they're trying to duplicate that now here with the WWE. And WWE fans tend to travel more for these big shows than UFC fans do, in my opinion. UFC fans, they might travel to Vegas for a big fight. They're not traveling usually anywhere else for one. So I feel like they're like, okay, this worked for the UFC with Vegas. Let's see where we could get away with it with WWE. I'm also curious. They announced 2026 for Minnesota. They didn't announce 2025. Do you think we're getting 2 nights 2025 at Wembley Stadium? Because they're not going to give Wembley WrestleMania right off the bat. Because this seems like Minnesota's getting a consolation prize here. I could see them doing the same thing with London.
Funny enough, if you were going to give 2 nights for a WWE event, I would rather see it in an international market. Like, I feel like that you could get people there to buy into it. I don't know if you'd get it here. So, I mean, hey, why not? But also, yes, oversaturation is I don't think TKO understands what it is to produce a weekly episodic television. I mean, that used to be the tagline, was it, Michael Cole? Longest running weekly episodic television show in history. That's an actual factor in this, and having that, and that they're always in another arena or place every single week, 2 nights a week at least, 3 nights a week if you're counting NXT. Yeah, it's gonna lead to oversaturation if they start making 2-night long premium live events, and it's not gonna take very long.
Rob, anything to add?
Nope.
Okay.
That's my piece.
Okay. So we'd like to thank you all for joining us once again. We're still a part of the Sports Frenzy Podcast Network, so definitely check out OTBS. Oh, that Bill shit. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Oh, that Bill shit.
On that
Yeah.
Bills shit.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Freddie and Big E. I totally screwed that one up, but definitely check them out. They're definitely getting some views and listens, and they're not just talking football. They're talking about all sorts of everyday stuff in life. Who knows? Maybe we're going to get bored one day and we're going to start talking about movies or something else. I don't know, but definitely check them out. We, as always, thank you guys for listening. Please spread the word. Please let everybody know about the good, the bad, and the encyclopedia. And I didn't see any comments really come in about who your top 5 King of the Ring, whoever top 5 King of the Rings period were. Feel free to comment under this video. Let us know what you think. We will talk about it on the air next week. Thank you all for listening. Have an awesome weekend. For those in the U.S., enjoy the extended Memorial Day weekend, and we will talk to you guys next week. Later.